I moved to the Midwest for university, and often drove home to visit because it was cheaper than flying. The drive took 22 hours, and more than once I'd been able to complete the entire drive in one go. After 4 years of doing this drive, and 4 years of aging, there came a night where I just couldn't finish the drive safely. When I checked the clock, it was 3 a.m. I just couldn't keep my eyes open. I still had 6 hours left to go. I knew there was no way I'd make it, so I stopped at the next town and pulled up the nearest motel on my phone. Unfortunately, driving across the Midwest makes for a lot of dingy motels, but the upside was that there was never anyone there and I knew I'd be able to get a room. Everything seems creepier at night, but I'm not lying when I say the old man at the front desk gave off a vibe that could freeze an ice cube. His eyes looked slightly past me and never directly at me. After the awkward and uncomfortable check-in, I was able to find my room. I double-locked the door and jumped into bed immediately. I was so exhausted that I didn't even bother brushing my teeth, plugging in my phone, or even getting under the covers. I just sprawled out on the duvet and instantly fell asleep. I woke up to a loud knock on my door. I wasn't sure what was going on. I listened for the knock, but didn't hear anything. I sat up and checked my phone and saw that it hadn't even been an hour since I checked in. I was sure I dreamt it. I laid back down to sleep, but whoever was there started pounding on my door again. This time I got up and walked to the door. I looked through the peephole and saw a large dark figure standing in front of my door. Against my better judgment, I cleared my throat and asked who they were and what they wanted, but they didn't respond. They just continued to stand there. It didn't take long for my adrenaline to get pumping, which launched me into a full freak-out mode. I told them that I was going to call the front desk if they didn't leave, and that seemed to do the trick. I heard footsteps moving away from the door. I let out a deep breath and went back to my bed. This idiot had scared me half to death, and now there was no way I was going to go back to sleep. I turned on the TV and just laid there, figuring driving while rested would be better than driving another hour and meeting fatigue yet again. That, and I was too afraid to go outside just in case the guy was still out there. I felt pretty safe in my locked motel room. I planned to wait it out until morning and then head out when it was light outside. As I watched the TV, I kept hearing a weird noise coming from the other room. It sounded like something scratching at my bathroom window. I figured it had to be a coincidence that this would happen after seeing some creep in front of my door. Naturally, I went to check it out. I didn't want to leave anything to chance. The bathroom window was small and located high up on the wall above my head. It had the obscure glass that you couldn't directly see through. I flipped on the light, expecting to see some wayward branches, and saw something pressed up against the window. As I got closer, I realized they were hands. This guy was trying to get in through my window. Even though rationally I knew he couldn't get in, I panicked and started yelling at the guy, telling him I was going to call the cops, hoping this would scare him away for good. Once again, he backed away from my room, but this time I didn't go back to bed. There was no way I could do this all night. I checked all the locks on my windows and made sure the door was securely locked as well. I put all my stuff in my backpack and slipped it onto my back. I was getting out of this place the next chance I got. I went to check through my peephole to see if the coast was clear. My car was just outside my door. All I had to do was get to my car. Just when I was sure I could make a running break, I checked through my peephole one more time and saw the same dark figure standing by my door. My heart felt like it was beating out of my chest. I called the front desk and told them that there was someone standing outside of my room. Looking back, I really should have called the police, but I'm not an expert when it comes to creepy motel situations. I went back to looking through the peephole, praying that this guy would leave. He was still just standing there. I told them that I had called the front desk and that they were on their way. It wasn't long before I heard the guy from the front desk come screaming at the stranger. I watched as the guy took off and the motel worker came to the door. I flung it open, told him I was leaving, and to charge my card on file for incidentals. I ran in my car faster than I'd ever run in my life, even though it wasn't more than 20 feet away. I was certain this man would appear just as I was opening my car door, or that he would be in the backseat of my car like in one of those horror movies. Instead, the motel worker was the one who shouted me to my car. He tried to apologize for the situation and pleaded with me to stay, but it was too late. I was done. I jumped into my car and sped off with enough adrenaline to finish the drive. As I was taking off down the road, I looked back into my rearview mirror and saw a dark figure standing in the middle of the road waving at me. To this day, I have no idea what the guy wanted, or if it was just someone pulling a messed up prank on me. I never was charged for the room, and I never heard from the motel again.
I travel a lot for work, which means I spend a lot of my nights away from home in random hotels across the country. My company is really good about letting me choose the hotel I stay in. Generally, the areas I travel to have a Holiday Inn or some type of Marriott. I prefer these hotel chains so I can get the reward points. However, there are small towns I visit that force me to stay at locally owned hotels or lodges. Sometimes when there's nothing else, I have to stay at the dreaded motels. Last winter, I visited one of my accounts in a small rural town in the Midwest. Just to give you an idea of how small it is, I love to run, and every time I visit this account, my 5-mile run generally takes me around the entire town twice. Yeah, it's that small. It's a 6-hour drive from the airport and about a 4-hour drive to any of the nearby larger cities. All of the meetings took place early in the mornings, so I decided to just bite the bullet and stay in the local area rather than having to wake up 4 hours earlier and drive all the way out there for a few reward points. My flight brought me in around 5 p.m., which meant I wouldn't be getting to my hotel until close to midnight. I wasn't especially thrilled about it, but it comes with the job. So I went through my usual routine of getting a rental car, stopping at the gas station, and loading up on snacks and caffeine, and then heading out. Eventually, I pulled up to a different hotel than I'd usually stay at. My client recommended it to me during my last visit. If I had to compare it to something, I'd say it was a lot like an older version of a Quality Inn. The outside looked like it had been made in the 60s, bragging about how each room offered a new color TV. To my surprise, the inside was actually recently renovated and looked pretty modern. The place had gotten good reviews online, so I wasn't walking in completely blind. The best part about this place was supposed to be the biscuits and gravy and their complimentary continental breakfast. It was a 2-story hotel with about 20 rooms on each floor, so it wasn't particularly big. I always check in first so I can figure out where my room is and park as close to it as possible. I have a lot of crap to carry in. I travel with expensive equipment for my meetings, like projectors, laptops, tablets, and even weird things like virtual reality headsets. Needless to say, I prefer not to leave these in the car overnight. You get the idea. So I pulled into the entrance and walked up to the front desk to check in. The hotel looked pretty empty, but that wasn't surprising, as it was close to midnight. The guy at the front desk looked to be in his early 20s. He was your average hotel night shift worker. After you've been to as many hotels as I have, you noticed a lot of common trends. But he was nice enough. He checked me in, handed me my key cards, and gave me the usual awkward, stammering, pointing directions that led to my room. I was staying in room 220 on the top floor, on the opposite end of the hotel. I got back to my car and parked right next to the back entrance. The back entrance opened up to a hallway on the first floor. The hotel didn't have an elevator, but the stairs were conveniently to the left of the door. After hauling all of my crap up into the room and locking my car until it beeped at least 20 times, I started getting my toiletries out to get ready for bed. I was exhausted. The hotel room was pretty small, barely large enough for a queen-size bed, a flat-screen TV, a wardrobe, and a small bathroom. I changed into shorts, a t-shirt, leaving my socks on because, somehow that would protect me from the unknown mysteries of the hotel floor. When I walked in the bathroom to get my toothbrush, I heard a loud banging noise coming from the parking lot outside my window. It was probably just some guy checking in late and slamming his car door. Scary things don't happen to me often, so my first thought wasn't there's some axe-wielding murderer outside my window. I continued brushing my teeth, but again I heard the same loud banging noise. I brushed it off again, not really caring about how many times he wanted to slam his door. He was probably just carrying in a lot of stuff from his car like I was, but wasn't being particularly quiet about it. I mean, it was late and we get all clumsy when we're tired, so whatever. I finished brushing my teeth, plopped down in bed, and turned on the TV to fall asleep to some stupid show. But there it was again, that loud banging noise. This time I went to my window. My curtains had already been open when I arrived. It was dark outside and I couldn't really see anything. The only light came from one of the hotel walls next to the back entrance where my car was parked. The hotel was right off the exit on the outskirts of town and didn't overlook anything but the desert and the mountains. When I looked out the window, I realized that there weren't any other cars on this side of the building. I checked to make sure my car wasn't the one making the noise. You never know. Weirder things have happened with rental cars. As I was looking out the window, I heard that banging again. I turned in the direction of the sound and saw a dark figure standing on the edge of the parking lot near a large dumpster. He was holding what looked like a baseball bat. It took me a few seconds before my brain finally put two and two together and realized that he must be the one making the loud noise. He confirmed my suspicions by smashing the bat into the dumpster with both hands. At this point, I should have realized how weird it was to stand at my window and watch this stranger attack a dumpster, but I couldn't look away. What the hell was he doing? Was it just some stupid teenager venting his frustration? I mean, weirder things have happened. Maybe his girlfriend just broke up with him, and he's taking his anger out on the local hotel dumpster. For a moment, I felt bad for him. Again, scary things never happened to me. I turned to see how late it really was, a bit past midnight, but when I turned back, he was gone. I lay back in bed, thinking about the situation, and came to the conclusion that I should call the front desk. I held the phone in my hand for several minutes, ready to make the call, but ultimately decided against it. I would just let them know in the morning. The kid was already gone, so why bother the receptionist now? A couple of minutes passed, and I was finally drifting off to sleep when I heard another loud noise from outside my window. I had finally stopped thinking about that dumpster kid. I looked out the window and saw the dark figure attacking my car, not with a baseball bat, but with a crowbar. I pounded on the window and screamed at the guy to stop hitting my car. The hooded figure stopped, turned, and looked up at me. It wasn't a kid. It was a full-grown man with a long beard, black hoodie, jeans, boots, black gloves, and a crowbar. I pointed at him and told him to piss off. He looked me dead in the eyes, raised the crowbar, and slammed it down on the hood of my car. I called the front desk and told them what was going on. The receptionist said that he would have to call the police and they should be arriving soon. I hung up the phone and ran back to the window. The hooded man was still down there, beating on my car like he was part of the Blue Man Group. I had to do something or I wouldn't have a car in the morning. I ran out of my room and down to the stairs to confront the madman. I wasn't a small guy myself. The only difference between us was that I was in socks and didn't have a crowbar. Still, that wouldn't stop me from throwing the back entrance open and kicking his ass. Or at the very least, trying to scare him away. I burst out the door screaming, but the man was gone. He must have seen me coming and decided to run. I looked at the damage he'd done to my car, only to find shattered windows, dents in my body, and even spots where he'd completely pierced through the hood. How was I supposed to react? I was standing there in the dark with no shoes and full of rage. I was just staring at my car when I heard a noise from behind me. I spun around to see the hooded man standing there looking at me from across the parking lot. It was dark. I couldn't see his face, but I could see his breath in the cold air. All my courage went out the window. I stood there alone, in the dark, facing the madman. He charged towards me, but I wasn't fast enough to get away. I jerked my arms up in defense and felt my arms snap beneath the weight of the crowbar. I hit the ground and gasped for air. He swung the crowbar at me again, but I was able to roll to the side. He didn't show any intention of stopping, so I tried to put some distance between us. I pulled myself up to my feet and ran towards the back entrance. I fumbled for my key card, but realized I'd left it inside. My heart dropped. I turned back just as he swung the crowbar towards my head. I dodged it just in time and shoved him as hard as I could, wincing as pain shot up my arm. I made a break for the entrance, but he was too fast and struck me across the back. I cried out in pain as I tumbled onto my back. He just kept coming. I rolled over and kicked at his knees as hard as I could. Luckily, one of my kicks produced a loud crack and brought him to the ground. I just kept kicking his face, kicking his stomach, kicking anything my legs could reach. The cops finally showed up and pulled us apart, trying to figure out which bearded madman was the menace. I never did make it to my meeting, and I was lucky enough to get away with a few bruises and a broken arm. The police never figured out why he attacked me. They told me he wasn't intoxicated and he wasn't from town. I don't think I'll be staying at that hotel again.